Do you have to jump in at the deep end when teaching the piano using the Kodály Approach? I'll be answering that question in today's podcast, where I talk about the Doremi 4 depths of Kodály piano teaching. It's almost the summer holidays here in England, and the last week of term is crazy for teachers and students. Plus, we're forecast record-breaking high temperatures, so I'm not sure what our brains will be good for. So I thought I'd just let you know that this will be the last podcast for a few weeks while I rest and recuperate, and also prepare episodes for Season 3. So for our last episode before the break, I want to share a lesson from my video course, Kodály Kickoff for piano teachers. This course is naturally available to all Doremi members, but did you know it's one of the few courses inside Doremi that you can buy separately? Plus, I'll be running live online coaching sessions in August for members and anyone who has registered for the Kickoff course. So if you want to use your Kodály knowledge in a piano lesson setting, or maybe you're new to the Kodály Approach, then grab this course and book yourself onto one of my live coaching sessions. Just visit doremiconnect.co.uk/kick. So, here's the first lesson from the course. I call it the Doremi 4 depths of Kodály piano teaching, and it takes you through the different ways you can incorporate Kodály-inspired activities into your lessons. Spoiler, you don't have to go all in. Okay, so we're going to talk about the 4 depths first, because I want to reassure you that it doesn't matter how deep that you go into the method, whether you join me all the way to the depths or whether you just dip your toe in the shallows, that you can benefit your students and yourself and your teaching, however much you go into it. So you don't need to dive in at the deep end unless you want to. And what stops us getting started, I think, is feeling overwhelmed at the complexity. But whilst the Kodály Approach is really incredibly complex, and as the further you learn, the more that you learn about it, the more your brain starts kind of firing off and getting excited. But it's also really simple in its beauty, because the way that we present it to the students is just the simplest form of teaching, I think, and that's what gives it the joy. That's what makes me feel so happy, that I don't go into a lesson and try and teach something where they look puzzled, because I've worked out exactly what the tiniest little step is going to be. I already know before I do it that they're going to succeed, because I know that they've already achieved the step before. And it's a little bit difficult right at the beginning if you've never heard anything about it. And, you know, I know Janie and Anne have done a little bit more, so I feel like they'll be nodding along with me. My challenge tonight is to try and get you to realize how much benefit there is from it and how you can implement them into your lessons without getting freaked out, and without, to use my analogy, because it's such a great analogy, without drowning in at the deep end, because I'm here to stop you from drowning. But just a warning that once you get started, you might find yourself wandering deeper and deeper, because it's just irresistible. So if you don't want to be wandering deeper and deeper, you should just leave now, because I promise you, you will become utterly obsessed and addicted to it. So step 1, dipping your toe. Just dipping your toe, cherry picking Kodály activities to develop skills for your students while mainly following your current method book. So some of the things that jump out, I mean, Kodály can do everything all the way up to beyond degree level. But for our students in our piano lessons, the key things that we really want to utilize are going to be the work that we can do on pulse or steady beat, on rhythm, and on pitch awareness. So those are the things that we're going to focus on today, for you to be able to carry on using Piano Safari or Piano Adventures or whatever book that you're using. And then just as a little add-on, a little icing on the cake, you can do some of these musicianship activities in your lessons. You could go for a paddle, work through a Kodály curriculum alongside, but independently of your current method. So instead of just doing the odd activity here and there, you're actually taking a progressive approach and you're coming up with a Kodály curriculum. I say you're coming up, you can absolutely copy my Kodály curriculum if you want to, at the same time and in parallel with your current method, but disconnected. Because the trouble with the method books is they will introduce pitches faster than the Kodály Approach will, and they introduce rhythms much, much slower. So we can make a lot faster progress with the rhythms using a Kodály active singing approach, but we would slow down on the pitch, and I'll talk about the problems with pitch in a little bit. The other problem I found with my method books, which is why I carried on going deeper into the Kodály approach, is that once you're hooked into the idea that singing is the key to everything, the pieces in the method books don't always lend themselves to be sung. So you might have some pieces that sort of go between two hands, so they're going well below middle C, and the melody is going between the treble and the bass clef. That's really difficult for children to sing. There's really interesting and difficult intervals for them to sing. So if we're saying that their success in music is based on their ability to sing first, then we need to be giving them pieces of music that they can successfully sing. Because remember, we're always wanting them to succeed at every point. So that's why I ended up swimming. I put musicianship center stage, and I just used the method book to cherry pick my favorite pieces, or like Anne said with the technique, cherry pick the technique activities. And this approach looks a little bit more like my lessons currently. So the sequencing is chosen based on what's age appropriate and what's stage appropriate for your student and your student's development, and not what somebody in another country in another decade decided to print in their book next. It's about finding what's right for your student for the next step. And it's funny because actually I have a student, or when I was at this stage, many years ago now, and I had a student who was flying through. I was using Piano Adventures. Piano Safari wasn't a thing then, and she was flying through. She was doing really well. She was really studious. She worked really hard, and there was no need to take her off the stream that she was on. But I was having so much fun with all these Kodály activities that I did some Kodály activities with her, and it was a very early version of the Doremi piano book, so I gave her a Doremi piano book just for us to dip into, and she kept forgetting her Piano Adventures book, and she kept leaving it at home. And I said, look, Ananya, it's fine, we've got lots to do, we can do loads of these other activities, but if you want to be able to play your Piano Adventures pieces, you're going to need to bring your book in. And she looked a bit, sorry for herself. And I said, unless you don't want to play those pieces and you just want to do Kodály. And she went, and I was like, oh my gosh, she was deliberately leaving the blasted book at home. And that was a real turning point for me, where I realized that even the students who I had pinned as not needing to go through this process still got so much benefit from it, because they succeed every time. They never fail, because you make sure they never fail, because you never ask them to do something you don't know that they can do. You never are turning the page and suddenly being faced with something where there's 3 new things on that page that you've got to suddenly figure out in one piece, or they hadn't quite grasped that other thing and suddenly. Or have you ever used one of those books where you turn the page and there's teacher tips on the page, and you're thinking, oh God, don't look, I hope my student doesn't look at that, because there's no way we're ready to do this particular thing, or hey, now transpose it into 17 different keys. So anyway, I digress. So finally, well, this is as deep as I've got, deep sea diving. Ditch the other method books and teach piano using this careful, progressive and magical approach. Careful micro steps with the songs and activities interweaved. Each lesson has about 6, 7, sometimes 8 separate activities using different songs, because we're always preparing the next step, practicing the last step, and presenting the current step. So that's at least 3 activities, isn't it? Every lesson we're presenting something new, maybe not every lesson presenting something new, practicing what we've just learned and preparing what we're going to learn next. Plus, of course, actually we're practicing the thing we learned 2 steps ago, and we're preparing the thing we're going to be doing 2 steps later. So it really starts to become quite complex. So if you really go all in with this, half an hour is chock-a-block full of all sorts of different things. Brilliant if you've got children who have trouble concentrating, because you're changing the activity every couple of minutes. It's brilliant. I'm obsessed, you can tell. So I don't want to freak you out, because obviously that's not the first step, deep diving, unless you want it to be. What you want is something a little bit more easy to chew. So that was just one lesson from my Kodály Kickoff for Piano Teachers course, which is one of the few courses inside Doremi that's available to non-members. If you enjoyed it and you want to grab the rest of the course and attend my live support sessions over the summer, then visit doremiconnect.co.uk/kick. I first heard about the Kodály Approach ages before I started to use it in my teaching, and now I can't live without it, and I wish I'd started sooner. In fact, Doremi member Estelle says exactly the same thing. I wish I'd found you years ago. Meanwhile, some of our members are card-carrying Kodály geeks with loads of experience and just need some help applying their knowledge to a piano lesson setting. So with the live support sessions, I can help you customise the activities to suit your teaching style. So pop onto the Kickoff course and learn the simplest and most effective activities to demystify that Kodály thing, finally get started, reduce the anxiety that comes with trying something new, and engage your students in a new way so they can't wait to learn more. Sign up at doremiconnect.co.uk/kick and I'll see you soon. Let's get you ready for the new term.